for global business updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Vimbai. Good morning to all our viewers out there. As always, we begin with the oil markets. Not much of a change. Looks like oil has been range-bound so far this week. So $80 level still for crude oil, which is good if you are in Nigeria, Iran, Libya, any OPEC member, right? You want to see oil higher than your benchmark. So 80.31. West Texas in the United States, 78.04. It's going to be interesting to see what happens once Trump comes in and whether there's a lag effect and so on and so forth. Natural gas dipping down a bit. Asian markets this morning were mixed. Shanghai Composite Index down in mainland China by 50 basis points. The Kospi, I think the markets like the fact that Yuck Sun-yeol has been arrested. That's the president who called that martial law because they laid siege to his home. He says it's illegal, and but the markets, reacted positively. So at least that last we checked, about 6:43 GMT, Kospi was up about 6 basis points. Hang Seng up. Nikkei 225 down. I think we go to France now, and the François Bayrou, who had a speech to Parliament. Takeaways: he revised GDP down to 0.9% for 2025 from 1.1. The deficit was revised upwards. I think he understands that it's going to be a challenge. So the deficit to GDP, he says they're trying to now get it down to 5.4%. Initially, they wanted to get it down to 5%. The issue of pension reform, which caused such major protests back in, 2023, he reopened it, trying to appeal to the leftist side of the party. So if we remind ourselves about the pension reform, it was, of course, put forward in I think we've jumped ahead here. We've got to go back to the pension reform. But either way, 2023 is when it was signed, right? And it was, yes, there we go. So it was passed in 2023. It raised the retirement age from 62 to 64. The French want to be able to retire at 60. They don't want to work longer, right? And the thing is, if you don't extend the years of work, you won't be able to fund your pensions. Almost half of the deficit that France is facing is from trying to fund pensions. It caused strikes and protests. So here's what François Bayrou said yesterday on pension reform, a quote from him. He essentially said that, listen, we cannot compromise the financial balance we are striving for. Balance means, income and expenditure. Doing so would be an unforgivable mistake against our country. I think the no confidence vote is coming up in about a month or so. The budget issue is also there as well. So look, France, as far as its sluggish economic growth, it has not grown very much. From first quarter of 2024, it's done about 0.2%. 0.4 was its best in the third quarter. No growth in the fourth. Estimates of the first 2 quarters of this year at 0.2%. The deficits, which he has tried to say he would trim down to 5.5% of GDP, that has also been an issue. You can see it spiking in 2020 because a lot of countries like France were spending so much on COVID relief. 6.1% is the estimate for 2024. Can they get it down to 5.4? To the UK, we got inflation figures that just came out this morning. I know Adefemi has been talking about the issues. There was a minister that resigned, but that also, non-market issues. But the UK, though, 2.5% headline year on year. Forecast also 2.6. That was where it was in November. The markets didn't really see any change. But the UK, of course, the pound has been falling. Economists are worried about the future. Sluggish growth. Gilts, which is borrowing costs, have basically risen in the UK. So Rachel Reeves is really under pressure right now. To the US, since we're talking about inflation, PPI, this is the producer side. So you got CPI, which is for consumers. PPI is for producers. That came in under estimates, 0.2% month on month. Estimates was for 0.4. November was 0.4. Core inflation, 0.1. That's where you strip out volatile food and energy. Full year 3.3 was 1.1%. So we're getting CPI for the US later today. So we'll see what the consumer price index is. The markets yesterday kind of mixed in America. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up by 86 basis points. S&P was up. The NASDAQ, which is where lots of the tech stocks are, that fell because they're worried about no rate cuts later on this year. And I think we round off with Meta. Yeah, Meta. Meta has announced job cuts. Mark Zuckerberg apparently sent an internal memo saying that they're going to be cutting 5% of staff. He's going to focus on low performers. So if you're not been pulling your weight, you're going to get a notice by February the 10th, and then you get your severance package. He also said that there's going to be an intense year ahead, which he now flipped that to all the overtures he's been making to President-elect Trump. He's still expecting a tough year. Maybe it's from competition, the amount of capex they're spending on the Metaverse, and so on and so forth. And then to, I guess, Nigeria, electricity. The Electricity Regulatory Commission announced that it has commenced the transfer of regulatory oversight to 10 states. The transfers have been completed for 4 of them: Enugu, Ekiti, Ondo, and Imo. 6 of them are still in progress. That is our update. We need electricity, we need power. It's got to be sorted out. So hopefully the states can attract the investment needed to get their own transmission, generation, and so on and so forth, and also the last mile to you and I.
I think this is really fantastic. As we've talked about, that if one of the solutions to this insistent grid collapses, I saw, the last time it was a trip-off, and then some people were saying, okay, when will the next one be? One of the solutions to the grid collapses had been to decentralize the grid, and part of it is states having an oversight of their electricity generation, and this is fantastic. However, I'd like to understand how far Abia has gone, because they were the first states to actually take advantage of this new regulation, and to see to what extent. Remember, in the first few weeks, we saw videos from Abia, people had 24-hour light, and they were really excited and happy about that. Let's see to what extent that has evolved. Have they been able to maintain that, so that we're not going from fry pan to fire by by decentralization and making the states have oversight? But I think in terms of the first or initial response would be welcome development. I hope other states would also take on this responsibility and begin to provide, truly provide electricity for themselves.
Quick update: Abad Disco actually raised tariffs by 50%.
Of course they did.
So
talked about that. If you want consistent power, you must pay for it. That's the truth. Yeah. But a number of people, especially business owners, would rather pay for electricity than pay for fuel, because it still works out cheaper, and so it helps with small business owners. And then for private home owners or home residents, you can decide to switch off and switch on, save on electricity. But very quickly, I just wanted to touch on Meta. They said they're still going to hire people this year, so it's not a permanent layoff. They just want to trim down excess weight or low performers, and people are not working. Efficiency is the word to go. So they will still hire more people, but they're letting go of their low performers.
Still on tech, I'm surprised you didn't talk about the digital refugees. The digital refugees, people who are moving from TikTok. Now people are using Red Note, the Chinese app, and the jokes are hilarious, because they say you log on to Red Note because you're looking for a Pinterest-inspired outfit or something, and it starts telling you about Mao Zedong and how Mao Zedong is the greatest. So they're saying that the Americans thought TikTok was bad. They don't even know until they see all the other Chinese apps, and it's incredible that China has an alternate app for every single app. Whether it's WhatsApp, there's WeChat, YouTube, that's quite, there's everything. So it's going to be interesting to see whether the United States is now going to start banning every single Chinese app that penetrates into popular culture. Lastly, on NERC, I just hope that the state governments can be responsible. We've spoken about the subnationals and how they're emperors in their own right. I just hope we haven't created another loophole for politicians to do what they do best. Good point. Thank you so much for your time, Rotus. This was a great business update.